Coming up.
Wowzers, is it?
Should have worked that out for myself. Yeah, got it.
Bad news.
Everybody being on fire.
I genuinely like meeting people.
Who've got absolute boatloads of budget that they want to spend on podcasts.
Join some groups that actually meet in person.
I like the idea of you being Larry with it.
Meet people who are out of your pond as well.
Nobody's ever used Fresh for me, I'll be honest with you.
Meeting people, finding out who they are, and then follow up with them afterwards.
Definitive in what people can specifically go and do.
Your area, your region, your town.
So much valuable information.
And now, enjoy the podcast.
How do you say that?
How do you say that?
How do you say that?
How do you say that? Hello and welcome to today's episode of How Do You Say That, sponsored by VoxBox, the portable, foldable, storable audio booth. Here is my co-host Sam Boffin. Hi, Sam.
Hello. And of course, this is Mark Rice.
Well, we're just about to meet our guest this week and have fun with some scripts.
We are. So, welcome to the Practical Podcast for voiceovers and everyone who works with voices. And remember, if you find it fun and useful, don't forget to like and subscribe to the pod so you never miss an episode.
Very true. Now, today's fun fact about Sam is that she was clearing out her mum's house at the weekend and discovered a very saucy photograph album. Do we want to know?
No, I won't go into any details at all, but I kept it very secret from my sister, who would have been utterly shocked. So I had to secrete it to the dump. So bless my mum and my dad.
Wow.
But I'm afraid that your saucy photos, which charted a lifetime of love, are now sadly scattered to the wind.
Good Lord. Good Lord.
Very shocking. Anyway, Mark's fun fact, actually leading on from that, is that he does love a prawn ring.
I don't see the connection myself. I'm trying not to see the connection. I do love a prawn ring, from Iceland or Lidl or Aldi, I love prawns, and it's the easiest way to get cheap prawns.
Yeah, well,
you know how we're scraping the bottom of the barrel with these fun facts? That's where we've got to, I'm afraid.
I thought my fun fact was not super
Yes,
bad
yours
this
is
week,
pretty good. Yours is pretty good, absolutely.
You and your prawn rings can, take a running jump. But anyway.
Let's move on fast, shall we? Let's welcome our special guest, who is the brilliant Ian Brannan. Hi, Ian.
Follow that.
I'm hoping you'll be able to, absolutely.
I've never followed a prawn ring before, but today is going to be the first.
Hooray, yes. How marvellous. Well, Ian is a voice artist, a radio presenter, a producer and a sports commentator based in the northeast of England and originally from Yorkshire. He's voiced TV commercials for Lavazza Coffee and Booking.com, and you can hear him in store in Asda or Spar. And on the phone, I love this, on the phone to Butlins or Eon. And he's also worked for some of the world's biggest brands, including Airbus, BMW, Panasonic, and once upon a time, Formula One world champion Max Verstappen.
Oof. Well, his background in radio is where he's been for nearly 30 years. That surely can't be right. Surely he's not that old. Working for Heart, Smooth Radio and Guardian Media Group. And he's also a presenter on BBC Local Radio in the North, an independent podcast producer and a lead commentator in the motorsport of Speedway. That's a lot, Ian. I'm surprised you managed to pack in anything else. Have you got a fun fact for us?
Yeah, well, a fun fact, keeping it fish-based, one of the stories that I like to dine out on is I once took star of S Club 7, Rachel Stevens, for fish and chips.
Oh,
no.
Nice. Yes.
How did that come about, Ian? Why were you taking Rachel?
Well, it's a great story. I would love to say it was some kind of romantic tryst, but it was not. Well, she was out plugging a record at a radio station I was working at. It was lunchtime. She wanted lunch. They fancied fish and chips. They said, "Is there a fish and chip shop nearby?" And yes, well,
the rest is history.
Let me take you there.
The rest was history, blimey. Well, I guess she was reaching for the stars with you, wasn't she? So, let's have a look at the first script of our show and ask, how do you say that?
How do you say that?
Okay, so this is a little script I'm working on at the moment.
Oh, I think it might be an audiobook.
It's a short story.
Oh, okay, so I'm not too far out.
Indeed.
Okay,
yes.
Interesting. It looks historical to me.
Well, it's that time of year. It's a ghost story, another one of my ghost stories.
Yeah.
And it's a nice one, this one, but it's just a little passage from that.
Good that you had that discussion. I was looking at it and I was wondering what sort of story it was, whether it was something a little bit more Famous Five or if it was something slightly more sinister.
It could have been. Yeah, no, I know exactly what you mean when you say that.
Mm-hmm.
but I think it has a bit more of a horrific edge.
So with ghost stories, you have to lean into the build, or at least that's what I tend to do. I don't know if it is a rule of ghost stories, but because they usually start off in quite a lovely place, actually. Generally, ghost stories, they're usually quite ordinary when they start off, particularly short ones.
Yep.
And then they go into a much, much, much darker place. So you have to kind of manage that atmosphere and that build as you go. This particular moment is a pivotal moment in it, but it hasn't quite got to the horror yet. It's leading up to the horror.
There's a couple of things in this that I'm worried about.
Oh,
The phrase,
really?
must not this be an omen, that's a really odd way of saying it.
Yes. Again, with ghost stories, there doesn't tend to be, again, this is in my experience, there doesn't tend to be a lot of dialogue, but the dialogue is often woven into
Right.
the prose, if you
Yep.
like. So you're almost getting a sort of halfway house of dialogue and internal thoughts, and so there's a bit of that. Yeah.
And Ian, you'll love this because you are the king of the cock-up, having won lots and lots of One Voice Awards for outtakes. This has got one of my evil phrases that I hate in, grasped from. Because when I try and say it in a sentence, and I saw it instantly from a mile away, and it's like, oh no, it's there. So I don't know what
dear.
will come out.
Well, crumbs.
Yeah, I wouldn't say that this has the initially from this point anyway, all the makings of a classic outtake, because it doesn't seem to be enough double entendre in it, which is
exactly.
my line of work. But
A lot of your
yeah.
outtakes are very funny ones. Yes, absolutely.
Well, it's in the eye of the beholder, I guess. But
Right, well, I'll tell you what, I'll have a go at this one, and then Ian can have a go, and then Sam can show us the way that she did it. All right, okay. So, ghost story, right. This trunk had two neat brass locks, one left, one right, along the front of the lid. Ethel, after fumbling, opened the first. Then so great was her hurry to know what might be within that she could not wait, but slipped her hand in under the lifted corner. She pulled out one pricelessly lacy top of what must be a bridal veil, and gave a quick laugh. Must this not be an omen? She pulled again, but the stuff resisted, almost as though it were being grasped from inside the trunk.
Ooh.
Oh, I got through it!
You did. Is that all? Oh, phew.
The relief.
yeah, I thought it was good, and probably in line with how I was thinking it would probably go. Certainly from my initial read, but yeah, I'm not, audiobooks and stories and stuff like that is not a big part of my work.
Nor mine, no.
So it's not something I'm overly qualified in, shall we say. Yes,
Interesting.
Yeah.
And actually, interestingly though, do either of you listen to audiobooks
Yes.
at all?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. And particularly my daughter actually listens to more of them. She listens to loads. But yeah, I do listen
Although
to a few, yeah.
more non-fiction than fiction, it has to be said.
Okay. Okay.
Okay. Very
So
good.
yes, I'm almost exclusively fiction that
Yeah,
I like
indeed.
to listen to. Although not necessarily ghost stories, although I do listen to ghost stories. But but I love a bit of fiction.
I'm wondering what you thought. Was there enough darkness in them? Maybe not.
It was quite a measured read.
Yes.
Almost everything had a similar weight to it. You're going. So that was all I would say. Is that I think there are probably moments within even that small passage to get little differences in terms of I don't know, little sort of smatterings of atmosphere.
Ian, I take the measured criticism from Sam, because normally I rush through everything. Normally that's the main criticism. I rush through everything. So I tried to be more measured. I obviously didn't get it quite light and shade enough.
Okay. Well, it puts me at a slight advantage, I guess, because I know a bit more about the script now than you did when you started. So, yeah.
All right, do you want to give it a go?
Okay. Right. This trunk had two neat brass locks, one left, one right, along the front of the lid. Ethel, after fumbling, opened the first. Then, so great was her hurry to know what might be within, that she could not wait, but slipped her hand in under the lifted corner. She pulled out one pricelessly lacy top of what must be a bridal veil, and gave a quick laugh. Must not this be an omen? She pulled again, but the stuff resisted, almost as though it were being grasped from inside the trunk.
Do you know what? The Northern brings it something, brings a certain edge to that, Ian, I have to say.
I love I love the intimacy of that. You really lent in. There was I really enjoyed that, and I loved the little laugh under the quick laugh. I loved what you did there. Yeah, and there was there's a nice intimate feel to it, which I think is really good with a story like this.
I guess especially a ghost story. Yes, I can see that.
Yeah,
it's sort of out of your comfort zone a little bit, isn't it? But when you get used to it being a voiceover, that it's okay to, sort of relax and throw yourself into it and really go into the world of it. I think when you're doing audio, I do limited audiobook work, as I say, but anything like this where you can sort of absorb yourself into the story.
Yeah.
It's rather than, say, doing a commercial where you're just sort of reading the words, I suppose, and acting them out, obviously. But here you've got time to let it breathe as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because I think we're quite used to being sort of, I don't know, clear and conversational and fresh and, all those sort of things. Fresh. Yes. Nobody's ever used fresh for me, I'll be honest with you, but fresh. But you know what I mean? We sort of have this, I don't know, almost nariness about it. I don't know, but somehow with a book like this, you've kind of got to get under the darkness of it. So it's got a very different feel, I think.
I like the idea of you being Larry with it.
Yeah, so what I'm going to do, I'm going to be Larry with this one.
I'm interested to see what you did do, though. So could we have a listen?
Sure. Yep. This trunk had 2 neat brass locks, one left, one right, along the front of the lid. Ethel, after fumbling, opened the first. Then, so great was her hurry to know what might be within that she could not wait, but slipped her hand in under the lifted corner. She pulled out one pricelessly lacy top of what must be a bridal-veil, and gave a quick laugh. Must this not be an omen? She pulled again, but the stuff resisted, almost as though it were being grasped from inside the trunk.
Do you know what that reminded me of? Do you remember when we did the Alice Through the Looking Glass stuff?
Yeah.
Almost that. And that's not what I was expecting you to do.
With something like this, you got to get the lightness in before you get the dark, because if you're dark from the start, then there's always a feeling of ominous, creeping terror.
I guess,
the ominous creeping terror comes in for sure, but it's made worse by the fact that in the rest of the world, in the earlier part of the book, it's all seemingly absolutely fine.
So better direction for me would have been not tell me it's a ghost story, but tell me this was just a light little passage.
Oh, well,
I admire people that, like yourself, Sam, and anyone else who does this work often, the audiobooks, they are a totally different end of the spectrum. The audiobooks I do tend to be factual stuff. I don't really do storytelling as such, but there's a real skill to it.
Play, how do you say that? It's worthwhile remembering these are real scripts we're working on, but we've changed some names and details to avoid copyright issues. Remember, you can find both scripts we're using in the show notes of today's episode.
So, Ian, tell me a bit about the script you brought along.
Yeah, now this script is a corporate job from actually what is now almost a couple of years ago. It was one of those where I was actually directed when I did the session, which is not always the case these days in the world of just record and send it and then you never hear of it again. Yeah. And if you're lucky, they might even pay the invoice. So this was actually directed by a company in the Netherlands. And actually, this was the script that won the Best Corporate in the One Voice Awards this year.
Can I ask a question? Because it looks like it might be for younger people.
It's it's a fairly sort of fresh kind of groovy company. Yeah. It's it's a business to business corporate job, and it would be very easy, I guess, to read it pretty deadpan, I suppose.
Yeah, but I just it looked as if almost it was aimed at children because it explains, as an explainer does, but it explains in fairly simple terms. Is that because it's across 2 different languages?
I think it's just when you see it, it was an animation. it's basically setting up the second part of the script. It gets into the nitty-gritty of the products and what they do and all that kind of stuff. It's a kid's story for adults.
Yeah.
in the CO2 industry.
It's entertaining rather than dry.
Mm-hmm.
Really is where we're going with this. Is that right?
Yeah, it's I read it with a child's story in mind, but for an adult audience.
Yeah, that makes sense.
All right, coming up. Okay. A long, long time ago, organic remains were safely stored deep within our planet, where it turned into carbon compound. Let's fast forward to the Industrial Revolution, where we first discovered that we could use this carbon to fuel our societies. But there's a catch. Every carbon particle we burn turns into a CO2 molecule that's filling up the atmosphere, which is bad news for our planet and for us.
Nice. One bit of practice information that I don't know if it's worth knowing or not, but the the last line where it says "bad news for our planet and for us," there is a graphic where it goes into looking like it's a news report. So it's sort of like you're reading the news, I suppose, at that point. So it went a little bit more serious there.
I thought you were going to say there was a graphic of everybody being on fire.
Yes, that's exactly what I thought. Everyone's screaming.
Every particle we burn.
No, there is a little break. This is the point where the thing changes, I suppose. But there is a point there where this guy pops up and goes, "Bad news."
Okay.
and then it flips into more of a corporate kind of, this is how they're going to solve the problem. But no, I thought that was nice.
Right. Okay.
Interesting. Okay. Yes, I did. It was very easy to follow. So you were quite measured there again. I mean, it was a criticism from before, but not as a criticism, as that kind of story, because you brought the story into it nicely.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yep. Well, I don't know. That was, yeah. Yes, very different piece, of course, incredibly different.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Cool. So how would you do it, Mr. Mark?
Yeah. So Ian talked about story, but yeah, okay. A long, long time ago, organic remains were safely stored deep within our planet, where it turned into carbon compound. Let's fast forward to the Industrial Revolution, when we first discovered that we could use this carbon to fuel our societies. But there's a catch. Every carbon particle we burn turns into a CO2 molecule that's filling up the atmosphere, which is bad news for our planet and for us.
Ooh, you're very hard at the end.
A dramatic.
I tried to get Ian's note about going into a news report.
Yeah.
That's where I was going with that.
Yeah.
That could well have worked. That was probably maybe harder than I did.
Okay.
But
as in harder at the end, Ian, or harder throughout? I was going to say, because it felt softer than I was expecting you to do, actually.
I kind of went more story, I think. Yes.
Yes. Yeah.
What made this slightly different was I sort of voiced it slightly more deadpan.
Oh,
I think,
okay.
And sort of using a bit of a lower end of my voice than I normally would, and I don't know what I don't know how that came about. I think that was just one of a few takes, but that's the one they chose.
Can you give us a rendition of that take that you did for them? Because that's fascinating.
I'll try. A long, long time ago, organic remains were safely stored deep within our planet, where it turned into carbon compound. Let's fast forward to the Industrial Revolution, when we discovered that we could use this carbon to fuel our societies. But there's a catch. Every carbon particle we burn turns into a CO2 molecule that is filling up the atmosphere, which is bad news for our planet and for us.
Ooh, that had a lot of energy in it, I have to say.
You say deadpan, but I kind of got a feeling of... I go back to what I was saying about a younger audience for that. I kind of got almost as if it was aiming towards... You know when in the old days Blue Peter would do a serious story?
Yes.
Almost like that.
If I was reading it generally, you would sort of say, A long, long time ago, organic remains were safely stored deep within our planet. So it'd be a bit more sort of higher up, a bit more chirpier. So, reading it a long, long time ago, organic, it's close to the mic and it's sort of fairly flat.
Well, actually, interestingly, although you used a lower register, there was a brightness to it. Which I wasn't necessarily expecting, which I really liked. It had a lot of energy in it, as I say. So it felt very, it felt really engaging. I didn't feel, unlike you, Mark, I didn't feel as though it was aimed particularly at a younger audience, but because there was a depth to it as well. So no, it sounded great.
I enjoy most scripts where you're doing a session with a directed session, and I come from a side of things where before I was a voiceover, I was a producer. So I used to be that person who, I'm not making commercials, but doing radio imaging promos and stuff. So, I get it from that point, and I think it is valuable, because stuff happens when you knock ideas back and forth as well.
It does, absolutely.
And you're right, you wouldn't have got perhaps that read if you'd have been left to your own devices, which is why I love a directed session, because you can give them exactly what they need and what they want. And it's often not what you would have done, left to your own devices. And as a consequence, that's fantastic, because after all, the whole point of it all is to give them exactly what they need, what they've heard in your voice to make them book you in the first place. But you can't second guess that when you're just by yourself. So
no, that's it, and it saves a lot of time as well.
It does, absolutely.
Back and forth, and that the stuff's signed off and everybody's happy with it.
Oh yeah,
and it's and of course you do an hour session and you get a good 45 minutes of gossip before you actually do the work. So
that is true.
Let's turn this on its head, shall we? Let's do the wildcard bit of the show and approach these scripts in a very, very different way. Let's see.
Right, yes. Well, so Ian, can you pick one of the scripts and give one of us a new way of doing it, a new character or a new motivation or something?
Well, what about doing the first one? If you're from the north, you get typecast, and that therefore brings me a lot of trades-based work.
Fair.
So
Fair.
People think that I am an expert when it comes to concreting. I wonder if you should do that, but with sort of it can be a north or south. You can choose, but with a tradesman in mind.
Oh, which one of us?
I don't know. I got
Toss
Sam.
of a coin.
Go with Sam.
There you go.
Yeah, let's see.
Excellent. Right, okay. Take a moment for this one. This trunk had two neat brass locks. So one left, one right, along the front of the lid. Ethel, after fumbling, opened the first, then... So great was her hurry to know what might be within that she could not wait, but slipped her hand in under the lifted corner, so the lifted corner that's up. Right, so she pulled out one pricelessly lacy top of what must be a bridal veil. Gave a quick laugh. Must this not be an omen? She pulled again, but the stuff resisted, almost as though it were being grasped from inside the trunk.
I love the factual way that you did. Must not this be an omen? It's like a tradesman would. It's like, there's your omen for you. There it is. That was quite nice. I'm not sure I quite saw you in the overalls.
Well, I'm classy.
Yeah, absolutely. Classy tradeswoman. Yes.
Exactly.
Tradesperson.
What would you want?
Tradesperson. Yes, indeed. Ooh,
it's difficult to do that within that,
Yes.
because of course it always is difficult to do these things, because the script never quite works within the context of something. So you've got to sort of keep. It's almost like you're doing the patter, the rhythm, but you're almost ignoring the words, but you're doing the rhythm of.
That's true.
I don't know, showing somebody how this cement mixer works.
Yeah.
And so it is interesting actually, because you can't fall into the words in the same way.
No.
You have to fall into the, I don't know, something different.
I've got one for Ian. I'd like you to be a sports commentator and excited.
Oh, hold it. That's what he does for a living.
Not with one of these scripts, though. That's what I'm saying. So I've kind of thought about this, kind of thought about it.
Yes.
So excited sports commentator. So as if someone's just about to score a goal or doing whatever sport that they're doing, but they're doing really well. And I genuinely think script one is easier, so I'm going to give you your script with that. because I think that might be quite difficult.
Okay.
Okay. Sports commentator. A long time ago, organic remains were safely stored deep within our planet, where it turned into carbon compound. Let's fast forward to the Industrial Revolution, when we first discovered that we could use this carbon to fuel our societies. But there's a catch. Every carbon particle we burn turns into a CO2 molecule that's filling up the atmosphere, which is bad news for our planet and for us.
Oh, yes.
You nailed it in one.
So good.
And do you know what?
So good, Ian.
That little catch in the voice, bad news for our planet, beautiful, because that's exactly what you would do going into a gut. Love it. Nicely done, Ian. Nicely
Amazing.
I was aware that I needed to ramp it up for the end. So you're trying to pace it a little bit. It's it's sort of a tricky one in that the script itself doesn't have a natural necessarily build. It has a good final line, but it doesn't necessarily build up as such like you would in some sports. But I think we styled it out.
I think you did, absolutely.
What's fascinating is to hear, so you've done actually in the course of this 3 very different reads in terms of 3 very different ways that you've used your voice in, that was a much, much higher register actually. That there is a very distinct register for that sports commentator that's up, and much more forward in the mouth entirely. So it's really interesting to have heard you do, particularly the one that you actually did and that one. They're very different. It's really interesting.
Yeah, they do come from different parts of your voice, definitely.
They do.
You can feel it. You can feel it. Yeah.
It's much more up in the head, that one.
Yeah.
Right, Mark, what I would like you to be is a call centre operator.
Okay.
Now, you can choose whether you're being very polite or getting increasingly irate.
Yes.
But I would like you to do script 2.
That's not easy. Not easy at all. Okay.
I knows it.
Okay.
You
So
can put
I'm going to
out,
imagine sitting, little headset on, 50th call of the day, quite bored. Right. Long time ago, organic remains were safely stored deep within our planet, where it turned into a carbon compound. Yeah, let's fast forward to the Industrial Revolution, where we first discovered that we could use this carbon to fuel our society. Oh, there's a catch here on your card. Every carbon particle we burn turns into a CO2 molecule. You're filling up the atmosphere. It's bad news for our planet. I'll try and sort it, and for us.
Bored, says centre operator. Oh, all right, love, yeah, okay.
It's like...
I'll see what I can do. Did you imagine they were talking back to you?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. And difficult without dialogue, I think.
It is difficult without dialogue. But no, I thought you caught the board. That I thought that was great. That sort of, oh God, here we go again. Oh.
Going through the script as they do.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, well, they do, don't they? Absolutely. Oh, dear. Well, if you want to be bored and play along in the privacy of your own booth,
say that.
or be a commentator and be really excited,
Yes.
you certainly can. As we've said before, we've put the script in the show notes so you can have a try yourself.
You can. Now, Ian, I think you're quite a big believer in getting out of the booth and actually meeting people as part of your job, clients and colleagues. But can you tell me a little bit more about that? What your ethos is behind that?
Yeah. My experience has been that, my best clients, most reliable ones, not necessarily for the big money, but, that keep you ticking over, are people that I know. They're not jobs that come out of the blue. I don't really use like pay-to-play sites. The people that you know are often you're going to be your best clients. And so it is getting out of your comfort zone. We're all used to sitting in our studios and being fairly, insular and avoiding the world. And even more so now, you speak to fewer people because work often is record and send. You get a script
Indeed.
out of the blue,
Yeah.
you send it back on MP3, and we don't see many people. And when we do see people, we might go to Vox and One Voice, which are valuable and fantastic, and that is part of it, to meet like-minded people and learn and get experience. But what I'm talking about is getting out of your voiceover pond and getting into another one and meeting people.
What kind of things, Ian? Are you talking like BNI or the CBI, local branches of that? Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, BNI. I hear that they can be quite demanding, like regular.
That was certainly my
and stuff.
experience of it. Yeah.
Yes. No, I'm not suggesting necessarily those like national organisations, but I think look within your local community, you will find networking organisations. I think that's what it's talking about, networking. Usually the ones that you might have to pay to attend are generally better. But build up a bit of a network. Go to these things, meet people.
Yeah.
Finding out who they are. And then follow up with them afterwards, and that is the point where you can give them the sell, not there and then when unless they kind of bring it up.
Yeah.
You can sort of, oh, hi, what do you do? I'm a voiceover artist, blah, 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 blah. Oh, great. Okay, move on to the next. And then afterwards you can get them on LinkedIn or whatever and say, lovely to meet you earlier. Yeah. This is what I do. But then once you've got them, say on LinkedIn, you can keep an eye out. And if they're doing anything that sort of verges into your zone, you can say, I see you're having a corporate video made.
Yes.
That may be useless to you from a financial point of view, but over time they might refer you to someone who is useful.
Sam, we've got it wrong. We need to do a business podcast, not a voiceover podcast, so that we're actually meeting business people that can employ us.
Well, you see, I think that's the issue, is that if you go out to meet people, just to meet people, not to meet people who might give you a job, that's the key.
Yeah.
Because I belong to quite a few local
You're
networks.
good at this, Sam, as well,
Well,
aren't you?
I enjoy it. I genuinely like meeting people. And at first, it was because obviously I'd worked, at the BBC for years, so I didn't have to go out looking for work. My work came to me. Every morning I got there and there was lovely work to be done. But once you go out there as a freelancer, you have to kind of make your own work happen. And so I had to kind of go out there believing in myself as somebody who ran a business. And that's actually why I first got involved in all the sort of local groups that were for small businesses. I'm still going to those groups. You go and you make friends and it becomes a much bigger pool because they've all got, as you say, you don't know who's connected to who.
Sure.
If you are self-employed, if you are an actor or you are a voiceover artist, you have to think of yourself. You are a business,
Indeed.
Yeah.
and so you have to treat it as if you're any other business, and that part of that is meeting people. And I think the other thing as well, we often act when things are going quiet or whatever. Then we start acting, and then
At which point
going,
it's too late, isn't it?
Yeah.
Exactly.
I mean, it's never too late, but you've missed the boat on that time.
Yeah, the time, when you're really, really busy is exactly the time that you need to be out there spinning those plates.
Absolutely, and also go out there and be kind of helpful, because I discover quite quickly they may not need a voiceover artist, but they might need advice about how to start a podcast, or advice on microphones, or advice on, how to get really great audio.
Yep.
And when you can advise them on that, just for the sheer hell of the fact that you're there and, you're useful, they talk about it to somebody else. And before you know it, I've had, certainly from the business, connections I've got locally, I've had lots of work from people that have kind of referred me, up the country. It's really interesting. I think it's a really good way of running a business.
So do you think that most of us don't tap our local network nearly hard enough?
I guess.
Hard to say, but I think a lot of voiceovers that I speak to, they might say they're quiet, and their natural response would be to send demos out to agents or tap up producers or whatever. But actually, are you going instead? You could go out to a networking event and you could meet the CEO of quite a major company that you probably didn't even know existed, who've got absolute boatloads of budget that they want to spend on podcasts, or they want to spend on, or they're getting some e-learning material made now, and they're going through the process of trying to find a voice, and they don't know where to start. And in which case, you can sweep in, get the job before it even goes anywhere near, going to anyone. So not everybody, but a lot of companies go to agents because they don't know
anywhere
where
else,
where to start themselves.
Yeah.
But you can pick this work up direct, but you've got to intercept it before it goes out. So
Ian, it's great advice. Get out there is the main message, I think, that you're saying. Thank you so much for coming on the podcast. It has been fabulous. A reminder that all of Ian Brannan's details can be found also in the show notes.
They can, as can the scripts if you want to practice. Yes. And do subscribe to the podcast and give us a review on Apple Podcasts.
Yes, please do. It only takes a couple of minutes. Do it now.
Do it.
Do it. That's it for this week. Thanks again to Ian Brannan. We'll be back next week, episode 99 next week.
Wowzers.
I know.
Is it?
Yes,
Scripty.
yes. We'll be back with more scripts and another voiceover guest when we'll be asking, we do this bit all together, Ian. We'll be asking, how
did you say that?
Say that?
How do you say that?